Hello, my fellow broke aristocrats. Today I have decided to entitle this video What the Frugal Community Gets Wrong. And so I want to focus a little bit on some thoughts I've had about frugal living and about my observations of life as a member of the frugal community now that I've been doing this for over a year. The first thing that the frugal community got wrong is the assumption that to be frugal meant that you are poor. That being frugal and living a frugal lifestyle is about being poor. The truth of the matter is, in many of the videos that I see about frugal living, there is a certain level of economic stability that is necessary in order to make the kinds of videos and to live the lives that I'm seeing on YouTube that promote frugal living. I'll give you an example. There are a lot of frugal videos that are being shot from people's homes, and they own those homes. To own your own home is a luxury, and so it requires a certain amount of wealth to be able to live in a home. Even if you're paying off your mortgage and you're living frugally to pay off that mortgage, that's a certain type of wealth that a lot of Americans don't have if you are living in your home or paying off your home. Frugal videos are often shot where the person has a kitchen to work in. I remember when I first started frugal living, I was renting a room in a large Victorian house with about 10 other people, and I had to share the space with 10 people, many of whom were strangers. And so I didn't get to shoot many frugal videos because the kitchen didn't belong to me. It was a communal kitchen, and it was actually owned by a friend of mine. I had to work really, really hard to be in an economic situation where I could financially afford to have my own kitchen and shoot frugal videos. So the idea of preparing frugal meals assumes a person is in an economic situation where they can financially afford to cook in a home, that they have some access to a kitchen, and that they have the utilities necessary to prepare the meal. Currently in the United States, we have a really low unemployment rate. But part of the reason why we have such a low unemployment rate is because many Americans are working 2 and 3 jobs simply to make the rent. And that has caused the unemployment rates to drop. And so on the one hand, while it may look great that we have a low unemployment rate, we also have to take into consideration that those people who can enter the workforce are working twice as hard as maybe their parents or their grandparents did, simply to pay their bills, and that's because of stagnant wages. So those are 2 things that I definitely see in the frugal community that are luxuries and assumptions, assuming the person has access to a kitchen and assuming the person has access to the resources in order to make the kinds of meals that are being recommended on these frugal channels. Frugal channels also assume that a person has a family, people that love them, people that care about them, and they're living in a family structure with people who are helping with the bills. Many frugal channels don't understand that many frugal people live alone, often in communal dwellings, like I did for a long, long time. Frugal living can be expensive for many people. In fact, if you're talking about having access to a kitchen and access to the stuff that goes into a kitchen in order to make a frugal meal, you're assuming that a person is on an economic level to be able to do all of those things. And so, in a way, there is a certain kind of luxury to get to the point of being that frugal. The other assumption that I see a lot, and I think it's a false assumption in the frugal community, is that living simply and frugally is to be small. That living simply and frugally is to be small. Living simply and frugally was never a small idea. Living simply and frugally was an idea that goes way, way back to ancient times, and it was something that many philosophers encouraged, both American philosophers, but going all the way back, centuries, decades, goes way back, even beyond the Bible. Very ancient idea. And the idea was this: to declutter and to make your life as simple as possible, to live dramatically below your means, and to be with as little stress as possible wasn't just good for your health, it was also good for your mind. That if one simplified their life and pared down their life as much as possible, one could then devote more time towards things like philosophy, studying, learning, and contributing to the greater society. If you are not spending a lot of money on bills, then you're going to have more time, theoretically, to take classes, read books, volunteer, become active in public service, be more altruistic, and to be more part of contributing to the society. This was the idea originally of frugal living, and it was also an idea that was promoted in cloistered living. If you look at traditional cloistered societies like nuns, they kept their lives as simple as possible so that their minds would not be cluttered by worry. If you are living so dramatically below your means that you are not worried about money, if you know precisely what you're going to be having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, exactly what you're going to be wearing every day, then your mind is no longer burdened by all of these complicated decisions, and your mind can then be devoted towards God or spirituality or service. And that's actually a really big idea. And so frugality is actually something very profound. It's about redirecting all of our energy and time towards something that is far greater and far more important. Far too often we see people chasing their own tail, trying to live up to expectations that make no sense, and consequently they live small lives. But when you think about the people that have inspired me the most in life, there are people that have lived tremendously frugal lives, and yet they have accomplished great things. I've talked about Jane Goodall in the past, and I guess I will again, because she is certainly a mentor. I love her writings, and I love the fact that she talked about living very simply and humbly when she was living in the Tanzanian rainforest, studying the chimpanzees. She has, of course, since gone on being probably one of the most famous environmentalists in world history, and she's written at least a dozen best-selling books. But she is truly a frugal woman who has lived her life with as few luxuries as possible. I think the only clothes she owns is a couple of slacks and a couple of shirts and sweaters. And it has not diminished her greatness in the least. And because she keeps her life as simple as possible, she's a vegetarian, a simple diet, a simple lifestyle, all of her time can then be devoted towards serving and making the world a better place. And I definitely think about her often when I think about the kind of a person I am trying to be, and I'm hopefully becoming as I move more towards a frugal lifestyle. All right, so that is what I wanted to talk about today, what we get wrong in the frugal community. Assuming a person has a family, let us never assume that. Let us never assume that they're in a family situation with a home and that they have the luxury of living the frugal life. Those things are luxuries, and that all has to be put into place in order to create the structure of a frugal home. And we should never assume that to be frugal is to be small. Being frugal, living a simple life, frees us up to then go on and do great things with our lives, so that because we are no longer burdened by debt and by the stress of such mediocre ideas of trying to keep up with other people. All right, I want to thank you for watching this video of Broke Aristocrats. Be sure and share, like, subscribe, and tell me what you're doing to take care of yourself without breaking the bank. I love hearing from everybody, so take care. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.